Good evening, students. I hope you all are doing good. So, as you all know, till we receive further instructions, we will be dealing with online classes. In QT, we have one more chapter to go, that is nothing but ratio, proportion, variation, and percentages. From this chapter, you can expect questions for 5 marks and for 10 marks, wherein from each section you can expect any one of the question. So now among the 4 topics in this chapter, that is first topic is ratio, second one proportion, followed by variation and percentages. Today's class we will deal with ratio. So you all are familiar with the term ratio. You have been solving many problems till date. So what is this ratio? It is nothing but a tool to compare two items. Ratio is a tool to compare two items which are non-zero items. That is, a ratio helps us to find the relation between two similar non-zero items. For example, age of Sunil, if the age of Sunil is 20 years and if the age of Anil is 30 years, then we can compare these two items. We can compare age of Sunil with that of age of Anil, and we can write this 20 years and 30 years in the form of a ratio as 20:30. So ratio is a tool or a relation to compare two items. See, here we are comparing two items which are of similar nature. That is, we are comparing the ages. We cannot compare age with weight, or we cannot compare income with expenditure. If we have to compare age of one person, we have to compare that with another person, with the age of another person. Or if we are comparing income of X, we have to compare it with income of Y. We cannot compare income of X and income of X and expenditure of Y. So now, as I said, age of Sunil 20 years and age of Anil 30 years has been written as 20:30. When further simplified, we can write it as 2:3. This can also be written in the form of a fraction, that is 2/3. Here the ratio 2:3, here 2 is the first term of the ratio and 3 is the second term of the ratio. This 2, the first term 2, is also called as an antecedent. In a ratio we use these two terms. First term is called as an antecedent, and the second term, in this example our second term is 3, it is called as consequent. So I repeat, the ratio is a tool or a relation to compare between two items, two non-zero items. If the values are 0, you cannot compare. So we say that ratio is a relation between two similar non-zero items. So here the ratio is 20:30. When further reduced, we will get as 2:3, which can also be written as in the form of a fraction, that is 2/3. First term 2 is called as antecedent and the second term 3 is called as consequent. This is all about meaning of ratio. Now let us deal the properties. You can expect 5 marks question. In this chapter, a simple problem can be asked, but in order to solve the problems, you should know the properties of ratio. As I said, first point, ratio can exist only between two similar quantities. In the meaning itself, I said, we can compare two items which are of similar nature. That is, either if you are comparing age of one person, you have to compare it with age only. You cannot compare age with income, or you cannot compare height with weight. Height of a person should be compared with the height of another person. Weight of a person should be compared with weight itself. So ratio can exist only between two similar quantities. Second property, when both the terms of a ratio are multiplied or divided by the same number, the value does not change. So now this says that when you multiply the ratio, any ratio for that matter, if you are multiplying or dividing, you have to multiply or divide by the same number, and then the resultant answer also will be same. That is what the property says. For example, let us consider our example, that is 2:3. Let us multiply it by 3. When multiplied by 3, each term should be multiplied. So 2 3s are 6. 3 3s are 9. Now our resultant ratio is 6:9. 6:9, when further reduced, it is nothing but 3 2s are 6 and 3 3s are 9. Our answer will be 2:3. That is what this property says. When you multiply or divide with the same number, your answer, resulted answer also will be the same. You can even, now in our example here I have multiplied, you can even divide and you can see. The value, third property, the value of a ratio is an abstract number, very important, abstract number. That is, the ratio gives only the comparison. We only can compare. See here in our example 2:3, we can compare the age of Sunil and age of Anil. Actually here comparison can be done in various ways. If somebody asks you how to compare age of Sunil and age of Anil, here in this chapter we have considered ratio. Otherwise we can also say that Sunil is 10 years younger than Anil, or Anil is 10 years elder than Sunil. This is also one way of comparison. But strictly, since our syllabus is ratio, we are expressing in terms of ratio. Now coming to the property, third property, the value of ratio is an abstract number. That is, we are not saying 2 years and 3 years. It is only a number there, 2:3. It does not give exact weights. I hope it's clear now. We write only the number there. We do not write weights in the ratio. Fourth property, when the terms of the ratio are interchanged. Now in our example, 2:3 was our ratio. 2 is nothing but antecedent and 3, the second term, is nothing but consequent. When they are interchanged, if I write it as 3:2, the ratio, original ratio was 2:3. If I write it in a reverse order, if I write it as 3:2, then it is called as inverse ratio of the first. It is an inverse ratio. One more example we have. Consider the ratio 5:3. This is an original ratio, 5:3. Then ratio, reverse of this, 3:5. Consequent becomes antecedent and antecedent becomes consequent. 3:5 is the inverse ratio of the ratio 5:3. You have to be thorough with these terms. Inverse ratio, inverse, reverse of the first ratio, that is nothing but inverse ratio. Ratio is always an abstract number, that is, it does not give the weight, it only gives the number. The ratio, when multiplied or divided by the same number, the resultant value also should be basically the same value. And ratio can exist only between two similar items. Further, proceeding to property number 5, let us see here. The product of ratios which are inverse to each other is 1. Inverse, you know. What do you mean by inverse? The reverse of the original ratio. So example, 4:5 is the original ratio. Its inverse will be 5:4. Product of their ratios. So 4 divided by 5, you know, ratio can also be written in fractions. 4 divided by 5, product. Product is nothing but multiplication. 4 divided by 5 into 5 divided by 4. 5 cancels, 4 cancels. It is 1. Or 5 4s are 20. 20 divided by 20 is also 1. Coming to the sixth one. If in the ratio x is to y, if our ratio is in the form x is to 5, antecedent is to consequent, then if both the values are equal, antecedent equal to consequent, x is equal to y, then we say that it is nothing but a ratio of equality. Equality, that is equal. X is equal to y, ratio of equality. If x is greater than y, it is not equal, unequal, but x is greater, we say it as ratio of greater inequality. Here, third one, if x is lesser than y, again it is not equal, it is unequal. X is lesser than y, so we write it as, we say it as ratio of lesser inequality. So if both the values are same, antecedent equal to consequent, if it is same, we say it as ratio of equality. If x is greater, ratio of greater inequality. It is not equal, so you have to mention it, inequality. If x is lesser than y, ratio of lesser inequality. Now the seventh property. If a new ratio is arrived at by multiplying antecedents with antecedents and consequents with consequents, it is called compounded ratio. Very important property. You can expect questions on this compounded ratio. That is, compounded ratios are those ratios wherein you multiply antecedents with antecedents. First term you have to multiply with the first term of the another ratio, and consequent you have to multiply with the another consequent. That is nothing but compounded ratio. Now in our example, we have three ratios here. First one 2:3, second one 4:7, and 8:5. If they ask you to find the compounded ratio, then 2:3 can be written as 2/3, 4:7 we are writing it as 4/7, 8:5 as 8/5. We have to multiply the antecedent with antecedent. 2 into 4, 8. 8 8s are 64. Consequent with consequent of another ratio, 3 into 7. 3 7s are 21. 21 into 5, 105. So therefore compounded ratio will be 64:105. I hope we further cannot simplify it. So our answer will be 64:105. Ratio is an abstract number. We don't mention the weights there. Next property, eighth one. When the terms of the ratio x is to y, if the ratio is in the form of x is to y, and if they are squared, that is x square is to y square, then it is called as a duplicate ratio. If it is cubed, it is called triplicate ratio. Squared, duplicate, 2 times, duplicate ratio. 3 times, triplicate ratio. 4 times, quadruplicate ratio. Square root, sub-duplicate ratio. Cube root, sub-triplicate ratio. So square, duplicate. Square root, sub-duplicate. Cube, triplicate. Cube root, sub-triplicate. To the power 4, quadruplicate. Fourth root, if it goes on. Sixth one, if they had asked you fourth root of x, then it would have become sub-quadruplicate ratio. So keep all these terms in mind. Last property, when the terms of more than one ratio are equal, if they give you equal ratios, then each of the ratios are equal to the sum of all the numerators divided by the sum of all denominators. If they give you more than one ratio which are equal, for example, here we have two ratios, 5/4, which is already mentioned in fractions here, 5 divided by 4 and 5/4. Both the ratios are equal, 2 or 3 terms, any number of terms. Then since it is equal, the value of this ratio can be written as 5 plus 5 and 4 plus 4, antecedent plus antecedent, consequent plus consequent. So your answer will be 5 plus 5, 10, 4 plus 4, 16. So further when you simplify it, 2 5s are 10, 2 8s are 16. So our ratio will be 5:8. So these are the properties of ratio. That is the first topic of the last unit of this semester. So the meaning of ratio, now let us revise. Meaning of the ratio. Ratio is nothing but a relation between two similar non-zero items. We can compare only the items which are similar in nature. So the first term is always called as antecedent, second term is called as consequent. So what are the properties of ratio? First one, properties of ratio. Among that, first one is ratio can exist only between two similar quantities, and when the terms of ratio are multiplied or divided by the same number, the resultant answer also remains unchanged. The ratio is always an abstract number, that is, we do not get the exact weights there. When the ratios are interchanged, we call it as inverse ratio of the first, and the product of the ratios which are inverse to each other is always 1. Compounded ratio. that is, we have to multiply the antecedents with antecedents and consequent with consequent. That is nothing but compounded ratio. Oh, sixth one, I forgot, isn't it? Sixth one, that is, if if antecedent is equal to consequent, then we call it as ratio of equality. If antecedent is greater than consequent, it is ratio of greater inequality. If antecedent is lesser than consequent, it is ratio of lesser inequality. Then if we square the ratios, it is duplicate ratio. Square root of the ratio is subduplicate ratio. Cube is triplicate. Cube root is subtriplicate. X to the power 4 is nothing. X to the power 4 is to y to the power 4 is quadruplicate ratio. Now the last one, if the ratios are equal, then the resultant ratio can be found out by adding antecedents with antecedents and consequent with consequent. So that is, the answer is 5 divided by 8, which is nothing but 5:8. Ratio is always pronounced. Here in the example I told you, 2:3. Ratio is read as 2:3. So class, this is all about the ratio introductory part. Tomorrow I will be back with the problems, and in case if you have any doubts regarding the topic covered by me or in the subject, you can contact me through your CRs. I'll be there to help you out. So with this I end this class. Thank you.